In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the presence of spirit in trance mediumship. Welcome to the channel. I'm Helen DaVita, and I'd love you to join me if you haven't already. And a big thank you to all the new subscribers and those of you who've been with me for a long time. I really appreciate your support. Now, the presence of spirit in trance, specifically trance mediumship. So many of us are used to knowing our little calling cards of when the spirit are close to us. Some of you might hear certain songs on the radio, or you get goosebumps, or perhaps it's feathers, or you see a robin, or you have your own little sign. So those are signs of the presence of spirit. And when I'm talking about the presence of spirit in trance, I'm really talking about the energy, the energetic signature of the spirit world, of the atmosphere, of the sitters, of the medium, of everything combined. So the presence of spirit in trance, I'm really interested in the energy that it creates and the effect it has on us. And I've got a couple of incidents that I want to recount. But before I do, the reason why I'm talking about this today is not just because I find it a very fascinating subject, which it is. It's because a little while ago, I asked a number of you to tell me if there were any subjects you'd like me to cover. And one man spoke up and said, could I cover the presence of spirit in trance? And so I am honouring that request, as well as talking about a subject that I love. But I love trance mediumship. And what I love about it is that wonderful sense of super awareness and at the same time, no awareness that can occur spontaneously. But each occasion that you sit in trance is going to be unique. So it's very hard to generalize. And I think this is true of all forms of spiritual work. We can talk about shared and common insights, but every experience is personal, it's individual, and it is unique. So what I think is very important today is for me to give you a couple of examples of occasions when the presence of spirit was very tangible and very clear to all of us who were present at the time. And the first experience I'm going to talk to you about is one that happened at the Arthur Findlay College when I was working there as a tutor. In fact, it happened on the very last week I was working there before I had to retire. And I was working with the wonderful trance medium Minister Simone Key. And in the evening, she had agreed to hold a trance demonstration for the students on my course. And this was to take place in the beautiful sanctuary in the Arthur Findlay College. So at 7:30, everybody gathered there, and Simone took her chair and she gave a trance demonstration. But I didn't actually go in. I wasn't required, although I did offer in case Simone did want somebody there, perhaps sitting for energy and just keeping an eye on things. But she felt, no, it's fine. I just want to sit with the group and we'll see what happens, which I think is actually the best way because you have no expectation. It is just an event in itself. It will be what it's meant to be. And I really appreciated that. So I left the sanctuary. I closed the door. I drew the curtains. I closed the door. And I thought what I'll do is I'll pop back just before 9 o'clock and check whether Simone like a cup of coffee or a cold drink or something. Because, you know, sitting for trance, it's very beautiful, but it can be quite exhausting as well at times, particularly when you've been working a very long day, which you do at college. Well, round about 10 to 9, I came back downstairs and I stood outside the sanctuary, and I could just peek through the curtains where there was a little gap. And I could see that the trance demonstration had finished and Simone was chatting with the students. But what I also could see was this tremendous sense of togetherness. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, when you think about it, we had a lot of people who had come from all over the world, a lot of people who didn't know each other, but in their seats, they were holding each other's hands or their arms around the shoulders, and they all seemed to be unified. Well, as the session had finished, it was okay for me to enter. So I very quietly opened the door and drew the curtains back and sat at the back just waiting to see if someone needed, anything at all, and to check the students were okay. Well, they looked ecstatic. They looked as if a weight had been lifted off their shoulders, and the emotion was incredible. So there were tears. There were probably about 30 students in that room at that time, and there were tears, but happiness and laughter. The biggest thing that I felt was that when I had entered the room, it was almost as if I'd been hit by a wall of energy, and I was overwhelmed by this sense of being loved, being cared for. What I usually refer to as being wrapped in the arms of spirit. But I sat at the back and waited, and the students came out. And as they were passing by me, they were all saying, "Helen, that was just phenomenal. It was incredible. It was beautiful." And then near the end, because so many people wanted to talk to her, Simone came out and I said, "Shall we go and get a drink? Something cold to drink, or would you like coffee?" Well, we decided we'd have a cold drink, and then soon after we went for a coffee. But what transpired in that trance demonstration was the mother of one of the students had started speaking through Simone's trance mediumship, and she hadn't been that long in the spirit world, but the message was particularly poignant. Now, what was incredible about that was everybody was so emotionally affected. The energy in the room and the emotion was just so strong that everybody felt it. So it's like a message for one in trance becomes a message for all. If the spirit come close enough and the energy changes, and the energy is as palpable as it was that night. So there's one incredible example of the presence of spirit, and it was felt very much like an energy, and it was felt by everyone. And I felt it physically as I entered the sanctuary. I felt this wall. It's almost as if the atmosphere has been charged with electricity. Rather like when you have with a thunderstorm, you have this intense, statically charged atmosphere that you feel a heaviness or a lightness, depending on how you experience it. But this particularly charged energy, I felt, was not heavy in the sense that it feels like you're being pulled down. It was very beautifully emotional. And so we have the emotion along with a sense of the atmosphere being charged with energy with the trance demonstration. And so that's one clear example of the energy and the essence and the presence of spirit. And it's really interesting because this was experienced on another occasion when I was working at Tony Stockwell's studio, and he'd asked me to run a trance mentorship at his studio. I'm going back a few years now, but it was absolutely lovely. And I remember the first time we met was about establishing who we all were as a group and what we were going to do and bonding. And we sat for trance. And at the end of the afternoon, Stuart came to lock up. And as he came up the stairs and he entered the room, he just went, wow, it just almost knocks you off your feet. So we'd had about 10 students who had been sitting for trance mediumship and bringing in the presence of spirit. And so when we had the presence of spirit, this energy built. Maybe it's electromagnetic. I don't know, but it was certainly charged and different. So there's another example of the presence of spirit, is feeling the change of the atmosphere. And there are lots of other ways as well. So we can go into those over time. On another occasion, I sat for a trance demonstration in Australia. And that was an interesting one. It was a big demonstration. And we used the red light because sometimes there would be reports of transfiguration. So it would be easier for people to see it in red light, perhaps. It was all experimental. We didn't put any rules on it. But I actually quite like sitting in that type of a light because I find it very relaxing anyway. So it's very easy for me to drift off into trance. But what actually happened was, as I sat for the trance demonstration, was the room became very cold. I mean, really like an icebox. And apparently that did not change until I started to come out of the trance, and then the temperature went back up. And throughout that demonstration of trance, where the presence of spirit was very apparent, we had two things happen. One person objectively saw clairvoyantly as my trance control was just about to speak, a man walk towards me and disappear into me. Now, this was another medium. We had the physical reaction in the atmosphere where the temperature dropped suddenly, dropped, and throughout the trance demonstration, people were having to put their coats on while they were sitting there and then take them off at the end as the temperature rose. Plus, we also had the presence of spirit in the energy field. So we had that sense of a complete atmospheric change. The energy was charged again, and people remarked about it was like electricity. So there are a number of experiences I could recount, and I am actually at the moment in the midst of writing a book on trance mediumship, particularly the questions around trance mediumship. What is it? Why is it this? Why isn't it that? And how did it evolve? And all sorts of things. But the big questions we ask about trance mediumship. But of course, writing a book takes time. So it's important to talk about it in between. And I'm really delighted to be able to talk about these things with you. I think it leads to openness, and I learn from your experiences as well. So in the comments of this video, if you would like to add anything, even just say hello, that's fine. Just make a comment. I'd love that, and join in, and we create community, don't we? So in essence, the presence of spirit in trance, in those experiences that I've recounted today, charged the atmosphere, changed it, changed the temperature, and held emotion for everyone present. So it wasn't just an individual experience, a one-to-one experience. It was a group communal experience where energy and emotion were amplified and changed back when the trance was over. So I'll leave you with those thoughts, and please do get involved in the comments section, because I really look forward to reading your comments. And it's been lovely to be with you again today. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to joining you in the next video very soon. Bye bye for now.